So welcome everyone to ABCD OpenScholar February meeting. I'm Kate and this is Joe. We're the co-chairs of the OpenScholar ABCD group. So today we're going to be talking about using video and audio within OpenScholar. We're going to do a quick overview of the basics, how to embed a video, and then delve into some different ways that maybe you haven't considered to display video and audio as well. So before we get into it, we are recording this, so the screen share, So you'll be able to access the screen share as well as the slides on the ABCD OpenScholar website after this, probably within a couple of days. And towards the end, we'll have some time for questions, and also the last 15 or so minutes, we'll have some open help time. So if you brought your laptop, we can sit down with you and answer any maybe site-specific questions that you have as well. We're going to present first for about 45 minutes. And then save questions for the presentation, as well as if you have any ideas for topics that we could present on, any knowledge gaps that you're missing, definitely let us know. We want to solicit that feedback. And then you may or may not be aware that OpenScholar is now lifting out of Harvard, so it's its own startup. So feel free to ask us questions about that. Ultimately, it won't really affect you that much. It's still free for the Harvard community. You're still going to get support. But yeah, let us know if you have any questions about that towards the end. So getting help, it's still pretty much the same. We have our community forum, so you can post bugs and issues, ask questions, share new ideas for features up there. We have the OS documentation website, which is now entirely run by OpenScholar Inc., the new Inc. And then, so we're in the process of moving the Harvard-specific documentation over to the IT knowledge base for Harvard. So things like how to link your Harvard key with your OpenScholar account, you can find that in the knowledge base with all the other Harvard IT-related materials. So if you can't find it there, that's where it is. You may cross a couple broken links here and there because we're still in that process. The roadmap, you can see what's coming up in the next release from the OS development team in their three-week cycles. And then we still have platform trainings every couple of weeks. So if you need a refresher, come on by. So let's get started into our topic for today. So more and more websites are incorporating various multimedia, video, audio with the new podcast craze. So we've been getting some questions about audio more lately. So it really increases engagement to have various ways of interacting with your content. And it really supports your text content because it's just an often easier of a way to digest for your site visitors. So if you have supporting content like video, audio, incorporate it within your web page, within your text content. So OpenScholar is not great at hosting that stuff natively due to a couple of limitations. So there's a size limit, which is I think 128 megabytes, right? So most videos you won't even be able to get past that step. You can upload some audio files if they're not too big, but it might not be. Joe's going to show you how to customize the audio player a little bit. But our recommended solution is to go through third-party vendors like YouTube, Vimeo, and SoundCloud for audio, because it's pretty easy to do that to integrate it with OpenScholar. So starting with the basics about how to embed a video, what is an iframe? So an inline frame, it's an HTML document embedded within another HTML document, so it's like a page within a page, and often that page within a page is a video. Okay, so that's how you bring in outside content like video or audio into your page. And it behaves just like an inline image as well. So you can see here, I don't have my laser pointer, but this is the bare bones of iframe code right here. So it's an HTML element, opening tag, closing tag, and then there's a source attribute, SRC, with a URL, and that's the URL that it's pulling the content from. So you can have a YouTube video, etc. in that source document, source attribute rather. So considerations about the URL that you're using to pull in content. You may get a couple of error messages if the URL is not whitelisted. So if it gives you an error message like that, just request it through community saying, hey, can you whitelist this URL? Maybe nobody's tried to embed it before. So just give a little reason in your post about why you might need to use it. It's just a security layer. And then it also must be an HTTPS URL. So if it doesn't have this S here in the URL, then you'll get an error about that. So OEmbed and Embedly. What is OEmbed? So it's a format that allows for embedding videos without the iframe. You can just use the URL. What is Embedly? So that is a platform which OpenScholar is plugged into that uses OEmbed as the underlying technology. So there are certain vendors that you can actually, you don't have to worry about the iframe on. You can just paste in the URL and it's going to pull in that video and some metadata, some information about it, just with that link. And anything that is on this embed.ly /providers list is going to work with just the URL. So it has a lot of the main ones like Vimeo, YouTube, SoundCloud, LinkedIn, Tumblr, Wikipedia. So you can just try pasting in the URL. If that doesn't work, you can wrap it in an iframe and then that should work as well, provided it doesn't have one of those possible errors for the URL. So some of the vendors that we recommend for video and audio, SoundCloud is down at the bottom here for audio if you want to embed that externally. For video, YouTube, Vimeo, and Kaltura is another popular option. So for YouTube and Vimeo, you just need the link. You don't have to put the iframe in. And then Kaltura, you will need to embed with the full iframe code. For YouTube and Vimeo, those are definitely the most popular. YouTube is probably the most popular. You can get your own account. You can also request to have your video considered in the main Harvard YouTube channel if it's of relevance to a general audience. If it's pretty academic in nature, you can request that. Vimeo Plus has better privacy settings, so you can restrict a video to only be embedded on a certain site, for instance. You can password protect it. Just better privacy settings, but there's a cost to that. I just like the way the player looks better. It's not so YouTube-y in your face. It's a little bit prettier. And yeah, Kaltura has a customizable player. There might be some other benefits to it that I'm unaware of. I don't know if anybody's used that before for embedding video. And I already talked about SoundCloud, and here's a link to the bottom with an article you can reference, on the ABCD OS website. It kind of compares YouTube and Vimeo a little bit. And another thing I wanted to mention, we're really pushing this hard that all videos should have captions. It's an accessibility thing. Yeah. So we have this list of resources on the accessibility site that has some vendors that are available to help you caption out videos. Yep.
Kate, I've been working recently with some of the museum websites on campus, and
yep.
A number of them have been contacted by the University Counsel's Office regarding captioning.
Yep.
There's a class action suit against the university, and they're beginning with some of the more outward-facing organs on campus, like the museums. But
exactly.
Chances are it's going to roll across the various schools and things, so we need to be prepared for the captioning situation.
Yes.
It needs to happen, and it's relatively simple to do. You can, if you have money in your budget, you can give your video material to a vendor and they can do it for you. But there are also some very inexpensive ways of doing it yourself. A little time consuming, but
yeah, thank you for that. It's really important, yeah, because Harvard's being sued by it about it. So and it's just the right thing to do. To make things more accessible. So we're trying wherever we can to make all videos captioned. Yep.
Since we're on the topic, we'll mention that next week's ABCD whatever the image and video imaging group is, they're having something, a demo on
Okay.
the tool that WGBH has created. And that's next week.
Oh, great.
Energy, that's what the group is.
EMD. Awesome. Sounds good. So actually embedding a video, it would be start out the same way that you would when you're adding an image to your website. You go to the media browser, which is that little icon that has a little landscape image on it. You choose the embed from web tab, and then you'd paste in the information, either the URL if it's an Embedly provider or the full iframe code straight into here, and then submit, and then it's available on the page. And so I'm about to demonstrate this using the WYSIWYG editor, which you can do either through the main content of the page or through a custom text HTML widget or whatever kind of content on the page you want. You can also use an embed media widget to do this same thing. So I'm going to embed this YouTube video about archaeology from my archaeology site. So typically there's going to be a share button. There might be an embed link or button as well. You could try, since this is YouTube, it will work just to grab the URL. But I'm going to show you the full iframe way as well. So when I click on embed, it's going to spit out this code for me. And most, all third-party providers that you would do this from is going to have something similar to this where it will spit out the iframe code. And you copy it, and you can customize this a little bit, and that will modify the code accordingly. Copy it, and then embed. So I'm just going to incorporate this like an inline image as part of the main body of the page. And I'm just going to place my cursor at the end of the page, so just like an image, wherever your cursor is, the video is going to show up. Go to the media browser, embed from web tab, and the full iframe or the URL goes there. And it's as simple as that. So we get a little preview here, but obviously we can't tell what it looks like until we save and look at the page. And there we go. So that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple, and this is a flexible way to have it incorporate with your text. And Joe's gonna talk more about embedding audio and different list views that you can use. So that's all I have.
All right, great. So a lot of familiar faces. Thanks for coming out. I'm Joe, work with Kate, Harvard Web Publishing. So with the next set of slides, I want to show you some different implementation ideas that you can have for your own site. We can look at some sites that already exist and how to incorporate video and metadata on your page. So for example, let's take a look at this site, Instructional Moves. What they've done is they have embedded their video just in a custom HTML widget, the same way Kate just showed you. And on the right side, they have all the metadata related to that particular video. And they've used a structure called a columns widget to make the video 66% width and make the metadata 33% width. And has everyone here used a columns widget or know what it is? Okay, great. So that's a very common way to present different pieces of content across the screen. And the good thing about the columns widget, if you grab the embed code that has a height and width, but your columns widget is smaller than that, it'll shrink down. It won't go outside the barrier of the columns widget. Let's say you had it 33% with the video and 66 the video would shrink down. So it works nicely in that way. And I did include the page link. Let's see if we can click over to that.
And they're using Kaltura as a vendor, and they have a transcript as well. So
I was going to show you that. Yeah, so that might looks like they're using. Are they using a third-party, Kate, for the transcript?
yeah,
Or is that
I think so. I
feature?
3Play Media
Yeah.
in the bottom right.
So,
Okay, great.
And it links up with the specific timing of the video, which is pretty nice.
Mm-hmm. All right, great. So let's look at another implementation. So here we have another columns widget. Actually, yeah, we have a list of files widget in place, and this page has a lot of meta information above, with the presenters above the videos. So what they're just doing is using a columns widget to allow the visitor to click through the videos one at a time. The title of the file is at the top. When they added the embed code, there's a place for a description that appears underneath, and then there's a little pager underneath there. So let's go to this site and check it out. Yes, I think I know what it is. I wonder if this is it. Yeah. So the way this page is structured, they have a list of their panelists. They don't need to use a columns widget. Instead, this is a list of files widget that you can page through each of the presenters. And then they have another set of panelists and another set of videos. Yeah, so one interesting thing about this is that when you have a list of files widget, you can specify to show the pager and how many items you want to show before the pager kicks in. Well, in this case, they just did one for each of these widgets. And I'll show you how to add this data into the file data when we get to audio next. But okay, let's take a look at another implementation. Videos. Okay, so this is another list of videos using OEmbed. And what I mean by OEmbed, you just think of it as when you copy and paste the URL into OpenScholar, that's using OEmbed. And OEmbed is sort of this underlying system that captures information from those Embedly provider services that Kate mentioned, like YouTube, Kaltura, Vimeo, SoundCloud. So OpenScholar acts a little bit differently when you use OEmbed in a list of files. So let's go over to this site. Yeah, so one cool thing is that it's got this built-in modal window or overlay. This thumbnail image is a little small to view a video in. So this is nice in that when you click on a video, it should come up in an overlay window. That's, oops, I spoke too soon. There we go, click on it. It'll come up in an overlay window. We can view it in a larger size, and that might be better for viewing. When you get out, you still remain in context, meaning on the page that you left off at. Sometimes you can get lost when you click into the individual video URLs. And just taking a look at look at the configuration here. The file type is set to video. This is a list of files widget. These are things that have been tagged. And if you look at the list of available file types, I'll be sure not to save this. There's video and embed media. When you copy and paste the URL, you must choose video for these videos to show up. When you copy and paste the iframe code, that is actually considered embedded media. So that's a key thing to know. So if I change this to embed media, we'd see nothing. We wouldn't even see the widget. So that's another implementation. Now we'll move on to sound files and podcasts. So one of the best vendors we have for sound files is SoundCloud. Just does a really good job of embedding a really nice player with customizable, with images, with colors. It's really great. So if we look at this example, this is from the wellness site, I believe, at Harvard. They've used OEmbed. They basically copy and pasted links directly from SoundCloud, and they have the file type set to audio in their list of files widget. And what it does is it display styles link with icon, and what the widget does is it displays a little icon, and when you click, it actually jumps you out to SoundCloud. So if we take a look at the actual page, you can see they've got some of their media grouped into different categories. And here's the widget we were talking about. So if we go to, if you want to hear this meditation, it'll jump us out to the SoundCloud file. So an advantage of this display in terms of user experience, it's more compact. It doesn't take up a lot of space on the page, especially if there's an accordion, there's other things to browse. So that's one option for you if you have videos, audio files. I want to show you sort of a sample use case of setting up a podcast section in your site. And you can use this for videos too. Using a simple taxonomy, you can have categorized podcasts or even categorized multimedia on a particular page. So to set this up, first thing I did was I went into the control panel, clicked on the taxonomy link, and set up a vocabulary of my topics or categories. I call it podcast topics, and the content types I associated it with are video, audio, embedded media, because you never know what I might have. There could be a podcast that uses a video format that just has a static image. So I'm just kind of setting the net a little bit wide in case I have some type of media that is a podcast that fits into one of these categories. So I added two terms that will be my categories: academics and learning and Harvard experience. These are just sample categories. I don't know if the actual videos match this, just disclaimer. Anybody who's a subject matter expert. So I'll show you what I've done so far. If I go to the test site that we use, and I go to podcasts, this is it. I have pulled in some of these podcast embeds, and they are grouped by the topics. So I have Harvard experience, and then academic learning, and then I have a couple of podcasts that fall into those categories. This is one way you can group the categories in terms of display. Another way that might be a little bit nicer, if I went into the layout and used the tabs widget, so I have a tabs widget that actually uses the content in these two widgets and just presents it in a tab format. So let's get rid of these. Let's just take a look at it. Right, so it's using these two widgets, but it's just putting a tabs sort of container around it. And then we'll take a look. That would be a nicer way to present these. So if you had maybe like up to like 5 or 6 maybe would be good. Eventually it'll wrap and it won't look good. But if you have that many categories, this might be a nice way to do that. Now if we look at one of these, let's go to edit one of these. I'll edit this, for example. So this is this an O embed or is this an iframe, first of all? What do you think? iframe, right. This is what OpenScholar considers embedded media, not audio, in the list of file settings. If I wanted to put some information, so a description about the audio, I could do it right here. And I click Save. That should show up. Let me just go over here. Did that not show up?
You got it. Text.
Okay, yeah. Cool. So you can do that. If I were to change one of these, go into the list of files widget, change one of these to audio. See what happens. So this is for the Harvard Experience tab. It's going to look very different. In fact, this is a podcast that I uploaded using a URL. So let me just try it on this side. Let's try the audio. Full content. Yeah, but there's one on here I did from SoundCloud, full content, and it'll display gigantic in a gigantic display. Here we go. It's coming, I think. Here we go. So with the OEmbed, you kind of have less control over how it's going to look. With the iframe, you can set the height and width. And you can, if I want to have that look the way the wellness site looked, I could do link with icon using audio, and then I'd have just a link with the icon, and I could link off to SoundCloud. Here we go. So just like the wellness site that you saw earlier, this will link off if you want to do that kind of implementation. So how did I get the videos in there? I'll just take a step back and show you real quick. What you want to do is go to Site Content, Add, Files. I'll just do that right here. And in my SoundCloud, I'm at the Harvard channel here. I'm just going to take, I'll just take anything. I'm going to click on Share. And I can choose the O embed, grabbing the URL, or I can choose the embed code, the iframe. I can customize it a little bit and take it out as the default iframe code. And I'll go back. where I was. Here we go. And I'm going to add this new podcast to our collection. So I'm going to paste in the iframe code. Okay, now under advanced, here's where I add the description text. And then here's where I tag it. So which category should it appear in? I'm going to just say Harvard Experience. And one thing you want to do, and this is, if you did the direct URL, it would populate this name for you. But when you do the iframe code, you should populate it manually, because when you go back to find it in this list of files, see some are these cryptic long hashes, we call them, a bunch of numbers and letters. Well, we want to populate that. So I'm just going to call it Memorial Church for now, just so I know what it is.
And that field is called name of file as seen by your site's visitors. But I have not found that they see it at all. That I see it when I'm browsing my files.
Yeah.
Other text is used to show on the public site.
In the list of files, it'll show up as Memorial Church. So let me just go back to the podcast section. So we marked it as Harvard Experience. Let's see, we need to change this back to embedded media. All right, so let's go to embedded media. Now, like I said, embedded media shows iframes that we put in. So now it'll show up, Memorial Church. So in this particular implementation, when you're using a list of files, you got to remember to populate that. Otherwise, you'll see that long string of numbers and letters.
So is that because of the widget you're using?
It is.
Like maybe the ways I've been using, like say videos, that's not shown.
Exactly. It's because of the widget we're using. The list of files takes that and it shows it in its list. Yep. So you just got to remember to populate it. And this is a nice player, and I could have even customized it like I mentioned. We're doing on time. Cool. So any questions? I know it's kind of tricky when you have a choice of pasting the URL versus pasting the embed code. But they kind of give you kind of two different kinds of options. Very similar. So play around with it if you want to try to do something like this on your own and integrate it with taxonomy. There's an interesting use case that I was asked to help with. It was somebody who had an intranet and they had some audio files and they didn't want to put it up on SoundCloud. So this is sort of not a common use case, but something you could do is I went and uploaded a file here. An M4A file, which is just an audio recording. And I took that URL and what I did was I created some audio tags. This is HTML5. Now, what Kate mentioned, you only have 128 megabytes as your file limit, so if it's a super long recording, you won't be able to store it on OpenScholar. And also, OpenScholar isn't the best place to store these kinds of files, but it does allow HTML5, which is these audio tags that allow you to have a player that you can have the player controls on it. So I went and added this. I tagged this. Let's do academics and learning. So the idea behind HTML5 audio and video tags is that the browser then becomes a player. Even though you haven't used a third party, the browser can implement player controls based on these tags. And there's certain controls that you could have, like you can have it loop, you can have it muted, you can show the controls, you can have it autoplay. No, never autoplay.
Why?
It's not very nice. So let's just go ahead and do that and see how it looks. Change this back to embedded media. There it is. So I have a little player with my podcast, and I have a description about the podcast. I have a download button, and you can see I put some of the attributes here to show the controls and to loop it. So when I play this is probably just me talking.
Hello, this is a test podcast 1.
That's me.
Thank you.
No one likes the sound of their own voice.
Hello, this is a test
Okay, very good. Good to know.
I think you should change that back to autoplay.
Yeah.
And hide the controls.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be really cruel. So this is really a fringe use case, but just wanted to show you that OpenScholar does allow HTML5 tags. And there could be other use cases where you'd want to do this. But our recommendation is to always use the third-party vendors. They're really good. SoundCloud, Vimeo, YouTube, Kaltura are the ones we use the most. Yeah, so I'll post this online on the ABCD OpenScholar website. And it talks a little bit about what happens when you just add the URL. When you're adding a file, all this information populates, and when you're adding the embed code, like we saw before, you need to actually manually go in and add the title to the file. I'm looking at a list of files right here. Okay, so that's all we have today.